Welcome back to the JB podcast, and today it's going to be all about film, and there's a lot of stuff I need to catch up on. There's a lot of films I saw that I need to let you guys know that I watched and my thoughts on them, and also a little bit on the strikes that are going out and just my initial thoughts about that stuff. All right, coming up next on the JB podcast. So I haven't seen Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 yet, but I will soon. So that is something I would like to also talk about eventually. But I apologize. I've been lacking with the film reviews lately because I kind of just got caught up. I kind of fell behind. I wanted to talk about so many movies, so I ultimately decided to do a movie catch-up. So this is going to be part 1, and then part 2 and part 3. I'll probably go from newer to older stuff, more relevant stuff today. If you want to still stick around and listen to the older reviews, you obviously absolutely can. I'm going to try to go into as much depth as possible. These are a ton of movies, so this eventually could be like an hour long part 1, part 2, part 3. Let's hope it doesn't get too tedious to listen to, but just before I go on that, I got to talk about the actors' strike and just kind of my quick thoughts, plus on the writers' strike that also happened the last time I talked about it. Talked about film. Last film podcast I did was to talk about the Oscars. It's unfortunate. We need writers. That's what I'll always say. And I'm always going to side with the creators on this stuff. I understand that maybe sometimes writers fall into the trap of kind of preaching a lot of politically correct things, mainly in the Disney side of things. But there are a ton of screenwriters who get absolutely nothing of the credit. And ultimately what a great movie comes down to, it's not the special effects. Director's very important, but cinematography is very important. It comes down to that story, right? The stories is what holds up. And, as someone who's trying to become a writer himself in regards to journalism, eventually possibly more things, I'm always going to side with the writers and what they have gone through over the years, considering how much work they actually do, and the fact that a lot of them aren't going to get the credit they deserve is ridiculous to me. And listen, this is a business. If you make something and it doesn't make a lot of money, you're probably not going to get that chance anymore. So as far as the writers go, I'm on their side, of course, and the actors as well. I mean, the actors joined the writers in the strike, I believe 2 days ago. I think it was 2 days ago. And to hear the leaked report of using artificial intelligence to possibly scan the actor's face, pay them for 1 day of work, and then use that image for the rest of eternity, I guess, and not pay the actor. It's insane. It's freaking crazy. But it just goes to show you what some of these executives are discussing, right? Take a company like Disney, for example. Disney just spent $300 million on an Indiana Jones movie, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. And it's going to bomb. And they spent a ton of money on a Little Mermaid remake, and it's going to bomb. And they spent a lot of money on Ant-Man Quantumania. It's not doing well. It didn't do well. So ultimately, they got to figure things out. They got to focus on making a quality movie, rather than saving money, entertaining demographics, obviously money's really important in all this, and sometimes when you give filmmakers complete creative freedom, they could shoot themselves in the foot with it, right? Or writers, same deal. Writer, directors, all that. Sometimes actors as well. But the actors thing, listen, we need actors. Without actors, we don't have. I mean, we got annoyed that the Oscars was not showing film editing during the commercial breaks. They weren't showing it on television. Stuff like editing, and editing's super important, and sound, and all that stuff. But with actors and writers, they're crucial to entertainment. They've always been crucial to entertainment. Whether you find when you read novels, when you watch movies, when you watch shows, right? That's the writers and actors putting that good stuff out for you. And it's a shame. It's a shame that you're seeing this stuff, and the hope is that it gets better. And I think most people are siding with these people who are on strike, and you know, you just hope things turn out right, because I don't think I'm just speaking for myself. I think most people who are even casual people enjoy watching a film, enjoy watching television shows, enjoy reading a good book, right? And you get that from writers, and you get that from actors. You need them at the top of their game. So that's all I want to say about the strikes. I just want to quickly say it. I'm in full support of the actors. I'm in full support of the writers. Hopefully things turn out right. But we're going to talk about the last movie that I saw recently, and that was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. For those of you who don't know, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was, I think it was number 5 on my top 10 most anticipated movies of the year. And it probably would have been higher, but ultimately I was scared because 4 wasn't very good, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I guess I was just nervous slightly, but I was also really anticipating it because James Mangold's directing it. James Mangold is an excellent filmmaker. I've loved many of his films. Walk the Line is great. 3:10 to Yuma is one of the best remakes ever made, and westerns I've ever seen. Especially in the 21st century. Considering all the remakes that we get, watch 3:10 to Yuma. It's top-tier stuff. He's a guy who's kind of made everything in every genre, right? He's made several different films and now he's making an Indiana Jones movie, or he made one. And I must say, when I found out the budget for this movie was nearly $300 million, I was just like, wow. Because if you just look at, I can't remember what Last Crusade was. I can't imagine it's that far different. But, I mean, Raiders and Temple of Doom even were like 20 to 28 million, which today I think would be around 60 to 70 million, about that. Just absolutely bonkers. $300 million. And guess what? I'm going to break news to you. Those films are way better and look way better. I was really disappointed with Dial of Destiny. I wasn't even a fan of the name, because I'm going to be honest with you. An Indiana Jones name should be like really memorable, right? Like crucial, like oh yeah, I know that movie, I know which one it is. Sometimes with certain franchises you can mix up the films because of their number and the name and whatever like that. I never get that way with Indiana Jones, ever, right? Well, there's only 4 out, but there was only 4 out before this one. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull at least is a memorable name, right? The Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, Raiders of the Lost Ark. These are names you'll hear constantly. The Dial of Destiny is so bland and forgettable. And that should have been the sign, because that's what this movie is. It is bland and forgettable. And I am so sad to report that, because I was watching the first 15 minutes. There are some people who were not, they're not fans of the first few minutes of Dial of Destiny. It's probably the best part of the movie, because if you can get past the whole de-aging, and by the way, we're going to talk spoilers because the movie's been out for some time. Harrison Ford is de-aged. And because he's de-aged, some aspects of it look good and some don't. And it's a night sequence because they want to hide the CGI, because Harrison Ford's, doesn't look real. So there's comes a situation where you're just going to have to try and buy it. And then you also hear his old man voice, which is very distracting. And when you hear his old man voice, you think, oh, God, I totally know that this is not a young Indiana Jones. And I get it. It's cool that you're seeing Indiana Jones in World War II. We never got to see that, right? The original films took place in the 30s. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I think, took place in the 50s. I could be wrong, but 50s, right? And then this film takes place in the 60s. So you look at it, you think, okay, this is pretty fun, though. This is a pretty fun sequence, because it is. It's, you're seeing cool things, right? Mads Mikkelsen gets, although an insanely dumb part where Mads Mikkelsen just gets hit like he should have died by that pole thing sticking out while the train's going a million miles per hour. How do you live that? How do you survive that sequence? And then he looks perfectly fine. He should be completely paralyzed. I don't know how he survived it. It was cool to see, but it's almost like something that could have been at the ending. It was weird. When I first saw it, I was like, Mads Mikkelsen's gonna survive this? I mean, at least have this huge, gigantic red mark. Because honestly, the hit was so hard. That hit probably lasted 20 years easily. So I was concerned about Dial of Destiny mainly because it didn't do well. Like, the critics' reviews at Cannes weren't good. They were very mixed, and that scared me significantly, because I'm thinking James Mangold, they're making another Indiana Jones. Like, everyone knew Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a complete disaster, although I'm going to be honest with you, I think I like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull better than this film. And I know that's really sad to hear. And I'm going to be honest with you. When I left the film, I didn't feel that way. I thought, okay, I think it's a little bit better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And then I rewatched Kingdom of the Crystal. Now, I've seen Kingdom of the Crystal Skull once. Okay, I was too young to see it in theaters. I wasn't an Indiana Jones fan yet. So I saw it much later. And I saw it once, and I was basically, I knew right away it wasn't very good, and I didn't really have a desire to rewatch it again. But I can say, right, after rewatching it recently again, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I think, is a better movie. And listen, is it close? Yes. They're both not very good. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is massively better, because it's not. It's not massively better. It's kind of a pick'em thing. But if you had to ask me, what are the issues with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? The issues with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull are basically the final parts of the ending. The ending is really like when it tanks. And there's just a bunch of dumb stuff. Poorly executed ideas. CGI gophers, right? Nuking of the fridge. Right? I mean, but there's still some fun, charming moments, like when when Mutt, tries to, they're sinking in quicksand, and Mutt throws the snake, and Indy can't catch it, and he has to be convinced it's a rope before he can even touch the thing, and the ants, killing the old Russian guy. and there's stuff like that where it's you could see the ideas of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg behind the camera. You could see that Spielberg isn't behind the camera here. And would I have liked to see him return to direct another indie movie? Yes, I would have. I think you could have made another good Indiana Jones movie, but I can't. It was kind of what I expected the simplest ideas to be. Indiana Jones is older. He's 80. I get it, but he's a grumpy old man. And listen, we're seeing this thing now where the characters are grumpy old people and the new generation is blah, 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 and the old guy and all this stuff, right? These cherished characters, these iconic characters, right? And I'm not the first person to talk about this. There's several different YouTubers to talk about this. But I actually like it for some characters. Like, I thought it worked for Luke Skywalker, for example. I liked Grumpy Luke. I know a lot of people didn't like that. But Indiana Jones, like, I mean, does it make no sense? I wouldn't say that. I mean, I could see it, right? But do I really want to see it? Do I really need it? Right? And considering how anticlimactic Dial of Destiny is, I just can't say that I just can't say like it's a massively better ending than say Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. All of a sudden you're here in the Dial of Destiny, right? It's a time travel thing. So you go back in time, all of a sudden you're in the Battle of Syracuse, and Harrison Ford's like, I want to stay here, right? He's beaten up, he's been shot, he has nothing to live for anymore, so he just wants to stay. And then Phoebe Waller-Jones punches him in the face, who, by the way, I must say, I'm not a fan of in this movie. Phoebe Waller-Jones is just not a good enough actress to pull off the poorly written character that is in this film. All right, so there are good characters, right? There are good characters played by actors that definitely were helped with the writing material, right? Of course. But a really talented actor or actress can take maybe not as great of a character on the page and kind of make it their own and all that. And it's hard to do. But you'll see it sometimes. I mean, I wouldn't say, take a look at like Spider-Man Far From Home, right? Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, I wouldn't say is a really well-written character, right? You look at it on the page, you're like, yeah, it's just nothing really to this guy. But then you see Jake Gyllenhaal perform it, and you're like, okay, I am really entertained because Jake Gyllenhaal is performing this, right? If you would have taken a Phoebe Waller-Jones and replaced her with, say, like an Emily Blunt, Scarlett Johansson, someone like that, like an excellent actress that can pull off the snarky, kind of unlikable but likable thing. Because this character on the page is awful. She's just really annoying. She's, she's just, there's nothing interesting about her. And she's also just unlikable. Like, there's nothing to her that you like. Like, there's no characteristics that you can get behind. She's kind of just in it for the money, which, I get it. There are characters who are in it for the money, and you could be, they could also be self-reflective, right? Like Han Solo, he's in it for the money in the original Star Wars film, right? He's always in it for the money, right? And then you find out at the end he actually can be a caring person. And that's what Phoebe Waller-Jones kind of has this thing here. But you got to cast a charismatic person in this role, and I just don't think she is, personally. Nothing against her. I'm not saying she can't be good in some things. She was also in Solo. She played that really annoying droid. I don't even remember the droid. It was Lando's droid, played by Donald Glover. Like, she was very unlikable in that too. It's just, I don't understand it. And it was almost kind of like they were kind of forcing it on us. Like, hey, like, she's very in your face and she's very this, but then that just doesn't please the audience. right? If you ever see the Friends reunion, they talk about the character of Rachel and how on the page Rachel can, if played by the wrong actor, be very annoying. And you look back and you're like, yeah. You look at like the actually written lines of dialogue and you could say, yeah, she could totally be annoying. She could totally be the spoiled brat. But they casted Jennifer Aniston, who's very likable, charismatic, can deliver these lines in such a likable, funny way. That's why it worked. So, am I even saying her name right? I may not even be saying her name right. It might be Phoebe Waller Bridge. Fuck. I just called her Phoebe Waller Jones for like 5 minutes because I'm just mixing up her name and Indiana Jones because I honestly could care less about this movie. I was so disappointed. It's one of my least favorite films to come out this year. And, I don't want to ruin it for people. I know there are fans of the film. I know it debuted at Cannes, didn't do well, and then there are people in the audience that liked it. Like, that's cool. Like, I'm sure I'll rewatch this again someday, but I don't really have any inkling to. Like, even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, like, has moments that I remember. Dial of Destiny is a $300 million bland and forgettable movie. It's almost like Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Not Dead Man's Chest. No, that's the second one. The fourth one, the one where it's just Jack Sparrow. I don't know why I'm forgetting the name of that one. Mainly because it's forgettable. It's that at the time was the most expensive film I think ever made. Right? I think it was like the highest budget ever. And I think it was Stranger Tides, I think. Yeah, Stranger Tides. On Stranger Tides, that's what it was. And there's nothing special really about that movie, too. And listen, to be honest, that movie looks better than this. I just don't understand why Mangold, and maybe this wasn't his decision, I'm assuming it was. I don't understand the choice to make the last two Indiana Jones films so clean. Just fake looking. Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls especially looks fake. I would say this one looks less fake, but like it's still fake. Like it just looks too clean. The older films look dirty, realistic, grounded. These feel like you're not even in the same universe as these people. Everything just looks so fake. And I don't understand the choice to do that. If that's where the extra money is going, cut it. Shoot on location. There are times where they do shoot on location, I guess. And another thing, Antonio Banderas, completely wasted in this film. He's just kind of in there. He's a sailor. They said he's supposed to be Indy's old friend. Salah's basically there as a wink to the fans. And, like I said, at the end, Indy gets punched in the face. He's in his apartment. Everything's okay, I guess, because Phoebe Waller-Bridges saves the day. This is an Indiana Jones movie, right? And Marion comes back, and she's just there, and I guess that's happily ever after. Honestly, I prefer the ending of Crystal Skull where they got married. And, what they did with Mutt in this film, how he went off to war, he died, and Indy's depressed, and that makes sense. I guess it's just kind of the first thing you think of when to deal with Mutt's character, because obviously Shia LaBeouf, they didn't want him back, even though I thought Shia LaBeouf was fine in I thought he was fine in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I really did. I didn't think it was like It's just a poorly written character. Like you don't look at Shia LaBeouf's performance and like, ugh, that guy sucks. Like Shia LaBeouf is very talented. Obviously, he's gone off the rails, so you couldn't really bring him back. But maybe recast him. I've seen that idea floated out possibly. But it is what it is. This is the last Indiana Jones film. Judging how it's probably gonna bomb, I can't see them making any more Indiana Jones stuff in the future unless they do some show with a young Indiana Jones like they did early in the day, back in the days. Like, I don't know. There's not that much more to say about this film. It was just very disappointing, and that sucks. And especially like we've kind of waited 16 years for a good Indiana Jones movie. I'm sorry, 16 years since Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but since 1989 when Last Crusade came out. It's the last good Indiana Jones movie that came out. And it kind of ended great with Last Crusade, and that's what it's always going to be. And that sucks because I feel like there could have been more potential. But Indiana Jones 1, 2, and 3 are classics. Temple of Doom is underrated. It's amazing. It honestly might be my favorite in the franchise. Last Crusade is just as great. And Raiders is a classic, right? Raiders is incredible. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull flopped. It wasn't what we all wanted it to be. But I think I would much rather watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull more than Dial of Destiny. So, considering that Disney couldn't reach that level with a really good filmmaker, I have no hope for any more Indiana Jones properties. Because at least with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, you look back, all right, Lucas and Spielberg were older. Maybe they didn't care as much. Tried some things, heavily relying on CG. Okay, all right, let's get back to the... Nope. They kind of do a lot of the same stuff. And that's disappointing. So that was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Huge disappointment. Another film I want to talk about is Past Lives. Now, this Past Lives, I also believe played at Cannes, and it was getting rave reviews. And I was really excited to see this film because not only just the buzz going on around it, but I think it has Oscar potential. And I went in to see this, and I thought it was excellent. Get ready to read subtitles because it's about two childhood friends from South Korea. One moves to America, and the other stayed, and they eventually want to. The boy in Korea messages the girl in the United States, and in their 20s, and kind of catch up again. They seem to be falling hard for one another, but they're just at a point in their lives where they can't leave. So you get spoilers for this film too. Slight spoilers. And I'm not going to spoil the ending or anything, but that's just basically what happens. You get the gist. And while this is happening, this is all in the trailer. The girl meets an American, a man, and they have a relationship together and they get married. And then all of a sudden, this other relationship that maybe in another world could have worked. All of a sudden, you're in this situation where you're still feeling those feelings you did when you were a child, and you're having these fighting emotions, right? And do I go back to my old friend? That's basically what this movie's about. It's about dealing with that. It's about dealing with the past. And I really thought this movie was excellent. And it's not too long, but it's a slow burn. It's very slow, right? The first 45 minutes are not a lot is really happening. It's a lot of talking, and it's shot in only certain locations, right? Because the characters live farther away, so they're talking through Skype. So because of that, they they don't shoot in many locations, so it doesn't feel like you're really going anywhere. You're kind of just a fly on the wall in these rooms, and I like that. And I'm someone who doesn't mind a slow burn. All right, so there's some things you can look at where it's not a slow burn; it's just slow, right? And slow burns are a pace that's obviously slow, but you see the scenes and as necessary, right? The shots linger longer, and you see it as absolutely necessary. And that's why I think Past Lives does. I didn't have a single issue with a lingering shot, an extra line of dialogue, a scene that maybe didn't need to be in there. I got it. It just happens to be slow. So once the characters meet again, it gets quick from there. It moves on pretty quickly. But the first like 40-45 minutes are definitely like, if you're not into that stuff, this movie could turn you off. But it didn't turn it off for me, and I actually really respect it. I think it's the only way you could have told this story in an effective way. Because what happens at the end, you're going to completely get everything that's happening. Past Lives is one of the best films I've seen this year. Not sure it's the best, but it's definitely top 3 or 4, I think, that I've seen so far this year. And I've seen most of the films that have come out this year. The films I haven't seen this year, I haven't seen the new Mission Impossible yet. I didn't see the Boogeyman, but I've seen most of everything. But yeah, quick thoughts on Past Lives there. The Flash. This is a big one. This was a big one. I was excited for The Flash. It was not on my most anticipated because I honestly haven't seen a DC film that I've liked since for a long time, minus James Gunn's recent Suicide Squad film, which I thought was really cool. I really liked that film a lot, and obviously like the Batman, but like that's not in the DC universe as we know. But The Flash, I was excited, and there was all this buzz before it. Like Tom Cruise said, it was one of the best movies he'd ever seen, and like all this stuff. And you're thinking, okay, it's getting a lot of hype. Ezra Miller has been in the news for the wrong reasons, so that had the fact that they were releasing this in the first place showed that Warner Brothers had faith in this movie, and it bombed. It didn't do well. Like it's people saw it as a mess. And I'll admit, like when I left The Flash, I was like kind of like disappointed. I was. Like I don't know if I was expecting more. This movie wasn't on my most anticipated list. Maybe it was cuz like a few days before I knew I was going to see it, like I was like, okay, like they're hyping it up. I wonder who's in it. Like I'm a huge DC fan. Like what are the cameos going to be? Cuz they said there was a bunch of cameos, and how they're going to work that into the story. The cameos must be pretty cool if Michael Keaton is back as Batman, and they show that in the trailer. Excuse that. Um, like, you look at that stuff, and you're thinking, okay, now I'm getting excited. And to be honest with you, I saw the hate. I started to see the hate this movie because a lot of people, I knew a lot of film critics that said Spider-Man No Way Home didn't do what The Flash did. Like The Flash took nostalgia and made it work, and did. I just don't see that at all. Spider-Man No Way Home handled nostalgia and fan service in a flawless way. Personally, I just didn't see it at all. I did not see that with The Flash. In my opinion, they did not do that. And I don't even understand why someone could say that. I think that's just like being a DC homer, personally. I just don't see it. But that doesn't mean this movie's bad. Like, I didn't leave this movie thinking, oh my god, that was a garbage film, that was a bad movie. My only issue with this film is the CGI. And the filmmaker tried to make an excuse. This is the director of the It films, which I was a big fan of the first It. The second It, not so much. Has its moments, but it's that was one of my most anticipated of 2019. It was meh. But that filmmaker's been behind some It Chapter 2, which had a lot of questionable CGI in it, right, with the de-aging and stuff. The Flash has horrendous CG, and they say they used it as a stylistic choice because the Flash is going so fast, so blah, blah, blah. I don't know about that. Although sometimes the CG is so bad, it's so unbelievably bad, that maybe it was. Maybe it was a stylistic choice. But maybe they just that's really my only issue with the Flash. Like, I don't see these glaring flaws. The cameos are not as huge as they think, but this film is not bad whatsoever. And it's honestly kind of grown on me since I left it. And I'm just giving you my honest opinion. I know it bombed. I know there are people that hate it. I know there are people that love it. I like it. I liked it. And I think the opening scene where Barry's saving a bunch of people, a bunch of babies, is was really good. I even looked at it like, even though I know these babies aren't real and that they look super fake and they're like the fakest babies I've seen since that stupid Twilight baby. I was like, how the hell is he gonna save all these freaking babies? Like, I was just, I couldn't believe how he was gonna be able to do it, and he did it. Affleck's fun to see. Gal Gadot is fun to see as Wonder Woman. I mean, I don't know if, that's a spoiler, I guess, but I think most people know what happens. The Flash, I'm definitely going to talk spoilers here, so just chill. Like, I'm talking spoilers because most people know it already. As far as the cameos go, Michael Keaton's in this movie. Does he really have to be in this movie? Not really. He probably, like, didn't have to be in it at all, but it's nice to see him. Like, they don't destroy the legacy of the character. They don't do anything like that. He, as far as the Supergirl, she's very forgettable. There's nothing about her that was memorable. People complained that they wanted to see her more. They wish you saw her more. Honestly, she was just kind of whatever to me. I didn't really see anything special about her. But the relationship with this film that I liked so much was was Barry and his mom, and the scenes with his mom, and the scenes with his dad too, but mostly with his mother. And I loved those scenes. I really did. And a lot of people are gonna they're gonna rip Ezra Miller, obviously, because of his stuff in that he did. But I'm not gonna let that get in the way of that. I thought he was absolutely great in this film. Like, I think he was really good. And some people find him annoying, and he's more of a side character. I thought he did a really good job. I really did. And I think he did a really good job playing both characters. There are times where you can notice that it's not like adaptation, right, with the Nick Cages. And, there's times where you can see it's not two Ezra Millers. But it worked for me. And as far as the cameos go in The Flash, I was not expecting George Clooney to come out of there. I just wasn't. Nicolas Cage was a big surprise. I saw that the director spoiled that actually before. I didn't read any of that, so I didn't know. Christopher Reeves, he was also in it, along with Supergirl. I'm forgetting that actress, to be honest with you. I'm not like this diehard DC fanatic where I'm going to watch Supergirl from the 80s. I'm just not going to do that. And the original actor who played Superman in the black and white Superman, I think it was George Reeves. So, he's in it. I believe I might have saw Adam West Batman in there, but I could be wrong. But I believe I saw Adam West Batman in there. It's been some time since I've seen the movie. Uh, Nick Cage was cool to see. I like the Nick Cage stuff, even though it was totally a wink. Whatever. It was whatever. Nick Cage was in it. Cool. The George Clooney stuff though, like, was so weird, and I don't even like. What does that even mean? Has George Clooney, who's basically said this in public, that he hated being Batman? Now that was now he's part of the worst Batman film ever made, so that makes sense. Joel Schumacher's made good stuff before, but his Batmans were pretty terrible, and specifically Clooney was not a fan of that whole thing. That whole production, he thought it would have been a good career move, all that stuff. It's one of the biggest flops of all time, and I'm shocked to see George Clooney even accepting to take this back. Christian Bale coming back would have been more realistic, honestly. But maybe maybe Nolan and his feud with Warner Brothers possibly uh, prevented that from happening. I have no idea, but that would have been more realistic to me, and I think people would have went absolutely nuts if that happened. Clooney coming back, it was kind of just like, oh, all right. Do I think George Clooney could be like a fun Batman in the future? Like, honestly, yeah, I do. I think George Clooney's a really good actor, and I think Batman Forever is just Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, uh, is just like, it was just that production was doomed to fail from the start. It's not an indictment on Clooney. I mean, Uma Thurman's in that. She's an iconic actress. So, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze. Like, just there were talented people in that film. It just didn't work because just everything around it was just a disaster, just god awful, and just the wrong vision. I don't know if they're gonna make any more films with Clooney. I honestly don't know if they're gonna make any more films with Ezra Miller after all this stuff, and knowing how the film bombed. I don't know. So when I left the theater, I was like, Clooney, huh? And I've never been in a theater where that was the reaction. Usually when you get a reveal like that, you get tremendous applause. You think, oh, you get that. And when people gasp, but then I heard a little, huh? That was the reaction when George Clooney came out there. So as far as The Flash goes, The Flash, I don't think is as bad as people say. People are saying that it's awful, it's terrible, it's one of the worst movies of the year. I don't see that. I really don't. I enjoyed The Flash. I just don't love it like some people do. I can't get behind the bad CG. I really can't. It's not good. And the director coming on saying it was a stylistic choice. I actually thought that while watching the film. Like, this must be a stylistic choice to see how horrible this CG is. I don't know. It sounded like an excuse, and I think some fans see bad CG equals bad movie, and I just sometimes don't agree with that. Right? Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith has bad CG sometimes. I think it's a good movie. So just because some stuff didn't work doesn't mean the whole movie's a train wreck, and that's how I feel about The Flash, honestly. Another recent film I saw was the recent Transformers film, Rise of the Beasts. Um, I I actually kind of was like when I sat down to watch Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, I was kind of excited because it was getting fairly decent reviews, and like, I'm very nostalgic for the Michael Bay Transformers films. Some of them are awful. Like Revenge of the Fallen, like the only thing that would make me watch Revenge of the Fallen, it's same thing with X-Men Origins, is it came out when I was 9 years old. Transformers and X-Men were super popular when I was a kid, and that's why I'm able to watch those films. I could laugh and have fun and just eat popcorn and just watch a bad movie. Like, I could do that with Revenge of the Fallen and X-Men Origins. I could do that. Transformers, the original, has a lot of weird crap in it. Weird Michael Bay stuff. But I honestly, like, kind of love that movie. Like, a lot of it's nostalgia, but a lot of it is really good. Um, Steve Jablonsky, I believe who it was, did the music for that film. And I love his themes. I just do. I love the Transformers themes when they arrive on Earth and all that stuff. Shia LaBeouf, I think, is good. Like, I do think Shia LaBeouf is good as his character. Sometimes hilarious to watch scream and stuff. I mean, he's got to do it. But I enjoy it. I enjoy Shia LaBeouf in those films. Specifically, the first Transformers and Dark of the Moon. Dark of the Moon, I had a blast watching in theaters. That was after Revenge of the Fallen. I remember the theater was packed, and everyone had a good time at that movie. I actually think Dark of the Moon is good. Like, so some people think, like, oh, even like Transformers fans, a lot of them say, like, okay, the first Transformers is good. Pretty much every Transformers after that was bad. I don't see that way for Dark of the Moon. I have not seen the Mark Wahlberg films. You know why? Because I heard they were horrible. I heard there was some. I heard they were so bad. And someday I will watch them. I will. But I let's just say, call me crazy if I'm not excited to take 2.5 to 3 hours to watch the Mark Wahlberg, Michael Bay Transformers films, because I heard they're terrible. And like I said, I'll eventually watch them. I actually remember being in eighth grade. I think I was in eighth grade. It was 2013. I might have been seventh going in eighth grade. It was like the summer. And 22 Jump Street was out. And it was 2014. Transformers 4 was out with Mark Wahlberg. Whatever that one was. I honestly forget. Um, Age of Extinction, I think. Yeah, Transformers Age of Extinction, yeah. That film, we bought tickets. I went with my cousin. We bought tickets to go see it. And then 22 Jump Street, we went to go see anyway. So we bought a PG-13 movie ticket and went to go see a rated R film in 22 Jump Street. And honestly, probably one of the best decisions I've ever made at the movies and saving money in my life. Because 22 Jump Street is freaking awesome. Anyway, Transformers Rise of the Beasts. I also did not see the recent Bumblebee yet. I will. I heard it's really good. A lot of people's favorite in the genre. But I have a ton of nostalgia for the original Transformers. And I like Dark of the Moon a lot. Rise of the Beasts is okay. Once again, they do the human character stuff. And, the main character is somebody you can get behind. Right? You root for him. His brother's sick, so he's caring for his brother. They're poor. He's looking for a job. He has a history of criminal activity, so he's having trouble finding a job. And he desperately needs money, so he tries to steal a car, and that car ends up being Pete Davidson as a Transformer. And I like Pete Davidson a lot. Pete Davidson is a comedian I've always liked. I know some people sometimes find him annoying. I find him very funny. And I found him really good in this film. But I would have liked to have seen more Optimus Prime badass stuff. Peter Cullen, I just love his Optimus Prime voice. I just love it. It's honestly, it's iconic. And like when you hear Transformers fans, like I love going back to clips on YouTube in 2007 when Optimus Prime comes in and you hear him speak, and it's Peter Cullen and he speaks, and you're like, oh my god, and then you hear everyone just applaud, right? Because it's great stuff. Anthony Ramos, he's a good actor, right? He was in Hamilton, the original Hamilton Broadway show, so he's very talented. He's in this movie, and he's fine, and they clearly have plans to move on with him after. But I'm going to be honest with you, as much as, like, Michael Bay's films get crap, yeah, then you get movies like Rise of the Beasts, who's directed by Stephen Caple Jr., who I liked a lot. I thought he did an excellent job with Creed 2. I love Creed 2. So I actually think he's an excellent director. And this film is well directed. It's just you know, and obviously there are Beast Wars in here. I was not a fan of I didn't watch the original Beast Wars cartoon, so I'm not going to understand honestly the stuff that goes into it. So I'm just judging it. Just judge, take that with a grain of salt. And I'm talking about this like I'm judging this film as just like I've seen Michael Bay's the first three Michael Bay films, and I know they could be way better than that. Rise of the Beasts has an ending that is fine, but like there's no stakes. And as bad as like some of Michael Bay's films ended up being, as horrible as Revenge of the Fallen is, you know, even Michael Bay admits that one is crap because of the writer's strike and in 08, 09, and just all of it was like with Michael Bay, his stakes were always high. Like there was always like end of the world stuff. And I get it. Sometimes you don't want end of the world stuff, right? Sometimes you need to make stuff, but that's I don't know. Like that's kind of what this movie was missing. Like I was kind of maybe it's just me. I was just programmed to watch a Transformers movie where the ending is like some big action extravaganza thing. Like you know, and that's not what this movie is. I just don't I don't get that feeling from it. And there's an end credits scene. It's been said already, so I'll say they're referencing GI Joe. So you know, we'll see what that does in the future. But ultimately, this film was fine. I like would I watch it again? Like maybe if it's just like if it's on television or something. Like maybe I'll just watch parts of it because there are parts of it I enjoyed, and it is fun. Like there's nothing bad like about this film. Like there's nothing like horrible. Like I'm watching this horrible thing. It's just kind of like it doesn't really have an identity, if I can say anything. Like there's nothing too memorable about it. And sometimes those are the films, like, and it's not boring either. It's just kind of like mindless to the like. I remember moments in Transformers One and Transformers Three. Like I remember moments. I remember the fight in Chicago, right? I remember the cube and everything going on with that. I just remembered those fight scenes, and I don't remember these at all. Like I just don't remember them. And I saw the film a few weeks back. Like I remember the ending, and I remember it being kind of like nothing's really at stake here. Um, you know, so that's honestly how I felt with that whole situation for Transformers: Rise of Beast. It's a film that is good, I guess, but it's not like amazing. Um, so that's going to do it for this part one of this podcast. I just wanted to talk about the recent films that I saw. So today we went over The Flash. We went over Transformers Rise of Beasts. We went over Past Lives very quickly. And then we opened with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We're going to get into more films that I saw because I saw a ton that I haven't talked to you guys in a while about. So part two will come soon. But this was part one, and I appreciate you guys listening to the JB podcast. Have a good day, everybody.